Hello and welcome to our second Leaders Interview as part of our Cold Chain Live series. Today I'm joined by Gavin Williams, who's Managing Director for Supply Chain in UK and Ireland for XPO Logistics. Gavin, welcome to Cold Chain Live.
Thank you. Good to see you, Shane.
Can you start by just giving us an idea of what XPO's presence is in the UK as a supply chain business?
Sure. So XPO is a global organisation. It's an 18 billion organisation in dollars. And in the UK, we have about 200 sites across supply chain and transportation. Major markets are in manufacturing, retail, e-com and food and beverage. So we're a big player, big organisation and growing.
And obviously you're a big player within the cold chain in the UK. Can you give us an idea of the sort of size of your cold chain operation?
Sure, yeah, we have 23 sites, around about 240,000 pallet stores in the UK operations, and work with pretty much all of the major players you would expect in the grocery sector. So we're kind of in the epicenter of a lot of our customers and the challenges they face and opportunities in the future.
And one of the things about your business is obviously you operate contract logistics operations on behalf of customers, and also you do sort of public cold storage as well. So you sort of sit across those two markets. How do you sort of feel about the state of the UK cold chain right now? How you see that, the prognosis for that market?
Well, I think it's in a positive space. I think before COVID, COVID's had an impact, but before COVID, I saw it as a maturing, improving, and an expanding market. So more SKUs, so more product lines entering, going to a bit more centralisation with some of the players that are in the market. Short term, I always felt there was going to be a shortage of supply, so demand outstripping supply. And maybe COVID has had an impact on that even further. So we are absolutely seeing within our customer base that we work with today, people shopping more locally, shopping more conveniently. How much that's there for the longer term, we'll have to wait and see, but we can certainly see a bit of a shift towards that direction. It was a direction of travel anyway, but we can certainly see that has been accelerated over the last few weeks here, under COVID. So real opportunity, maybe a slight shortage of supply at the moment in terms of space and capacity, but that'll be overcome in the medium term.
Great. I will ask you a bit more about that in a second, but just can I ask you about, obviously, as a business, you've been working for the last 6 months in the lockdown period. How have you and the team coped with the sort of restrictions and challenges of working in an unprecedented situation?
Brilliantly, I think. So you're in our head office today, which would normally have best part of 200 people in it. Today you walk around, there's maybe 10. So first thing, I guess, is to talk about people. So the people bit was really important, and nobody's got the experience of a pandemic, I don't think, but I certainly didn't have. But we're an agile and responsive business, and very quickly we made the decision to allow people to work from home, provide the facilities and the infrastructure to allow them to do that. We also learned very quickly that, we knew it already, but we learned very quickly that we are real key workers. So the logistics and the supply chain industry is absolutely critical to overcoming this pandemic situation. So that's been really kind of a big learning point for me, is how you can really quickly adapt to changes that happen so quickly. I mean, back in January, February, we weren't forecasting to have to close our head office. There's no doubt about that. In terms of the business side of things, well, we've done pretty well actually. Everyone was impacted in our quarter two, so in the March through to June time. We're not immune to the market, but our core sectors, which are in food and beverage, e-com, and manufacturing, those businesses have kept going, and actually for many of them they've been operating at anything between 5 and 30% up year on year. So it's quite strange. In some parts of the business we've been in peak above peak for a long time, but in some parts of the business, hospitality perhaps is the one I've got my mind on there. We've seen a real drop in demand, and that's probably the only area that it's not the biggest part of our business, but it's probably the only area that hasn't yet got back to full recovery. But the other areas in food and beverage, e-com, even retail is coming back, and certainly manufacturing. Those businesses have really come back with a vengeance, and we're in a good space in September. We're only 9 months in though into our year, but we're in a good space.
And in terms of the sort of labour kind of sort of pressures that have been created by the situation, with those sort of changes in dynamics, have you been able to be quite agile with how you've been able to move your resource around?
Well, yeah, but that's been a real challenge. So, firstly, if I go back to March and April, everyone had their own interpretation of what a key worker was. So people in food and medical areas, they knew they were key workers because the government were talking about those being real key sectors. But we've been able to help and influence the government. We're on a few forums with government think tanks, and we've been saying to them they need to get their messages louder, that key workers are beyond food. It's other sectors that have been really important as well. And our employees over time have kind of realised that they are a key worker, in terms of whether they work in e-com or retail. Carrying on working was government advice, and we followed that. We've had our challenges, when it's very hard when you've got a situation where, you're restricting visitors, restricting people to sites, to be able to respond to big surges of demand. because it's hard to get people to move from one site to another and do that in a really safe way. So historically, you would move people in, put them in cars or put them in, vans or whatever it be. That's been really difficult because you can't do that in a COVID situation. So the way we've responded is really been a key part. It's been with our customers and their stores and their networks to make sure that actually we try and even out the volume over the course of the week. And that's something that's very much happened in the food and beverage and the cool chain actually. We've been able to spread volume rather than it being a peak on a Thursday, Friday, peak on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday as well. So spreading the volume a bit evenly has allowed us to be able to manage the forecast and the volumes to its maximum over a long period of time. So.
And do you think that's a sort of lesson learned in terms of how the interaction between yourselves and your customers and across the piece? Do you think there's something that we will stay with us once we get back to whatever new normal looks like?
Yeah, I predict that people are, because they're shopping more locally, people are going to stores more frequently. So perhaps the spread of the volume will be a little bit better than it's been historically, but absolutely in terms of how do you, rather than pouring volume onto the demand, how you can make it more efficient and spreading it is a benefit for everyone. It's cheaper, it's more efficient, it's better for our employees. So in the end, everyone benefits and the end customer benefits in price.
And I think that's actually one of our theme for our conference, as you know, is the issue around net zero and sustainability. And that demand kind of management and sort of managing and peaking at demand helps really with efficiency in the supply chain, doesn't it?
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in the end, if you're trying to kind of do a 100-meter race in 9 seconds all the time, that takes a big demand on the supply chain that sits behind it. So if you're able to spread out the pace of the way you work a bit more evenly over time, then absolutely you're more efficient, you're more environmentally friendly, and you're just better in your supply chain.
One of the reasons I'm so keen to talk to you, Gavin, is I know that XPO have done a lot of in the last sort of year, last 4 or 5 years, in terms of investing in innovation and change in your business. Can you sort of tell us a bit about how you sort of made the decisions around the investments that you've made linked to the efficiencies that you've achieved and how that impacts on your environmental performance?
Yeah, absolutely. So we invest $550 million globally in technology. So, I've been in the business for nearly 6 years. That was a big difference when I joined the business under XPO, is how important technology and the focus on it was within our organisation. And there's good reason for it. You can't keep doing, everyone works efficiently. I trust everyone, all our employees do work efficiently, but they need help. And the way to do that is to invest in the resources that you've got. So therefore simplify their jobs, make them more efficiently. So what we do is we target our technology in specific areas that improve or solve problems. So there's no point just putting technology out there for technology's sake. There's lots of things you can apply, but if they don't solve our problems, then they're not going to be more efficient and more environmentally friendly. So some of the areas that we've been investing in is we've got XPO Connect, which is a software system that sits across our suppliers, our operations and our customers, and optimizes the efficiency of our fleet within our business. It's come from the US. We've imported it into our European business, and that's something that's very big for us. We're also looking and also have deployed cobots in our business. So this is about making our employees safer, because they're not having to drag around pallet trucks all the time. So it's safer for them. They're able to walk around hands-free. And it's also not only more efficient, it's also more effective, because the quality of the work they do is A1, whereas it's reliant on people normally. Having the technology to support them makes it just a bit more efficient, and therefore the end game is more efficient, more environmentally friendly. So they're kind of two key areas that we're looking to deploy, mainly in transportation and also in cobots. In the end, we're in a bigger people employer still, so we still pour more volume of people into our business, no matter the technology. Just the efficiency of the way they operate is improving every year.
That whole issue of how we gather, use and interpret data, I think is probably one of the biggest game-changing ways in which we can transform or continuously improve supply chain operations. How does that that gathering of data and use of data help in terms of your relationships and discussions with customers?
You heard me talk about earlier on about how we've been able to smooth demand across the working week. So that is all about data you gather from your customers' information. Firstly, you need your customers to be sharing it. I mean, some of it is very sensitive information, but they absolutely now get, and it's been for a while really, but they absolutely get that sharing that data has a direct impact on the price that we charge them for the services we provide. So being able to, we call it something you see with these labels of big data, etc. Actually, the core of this is having accurate forecasting, and the way you work in accurate forecasting is having analytics to work on, which we've got in our business. We've also got a smart software system that again has come from the US, has been deployed in Europe, which effectively manages from demand right the way through to operational efficiency. So it gives a tablet of information to the warehouse operative to tell them how they're performing. But the very start of it is demand planning, and getting accurate information that drives the efficiency of the people that sits behind it. So really, we're going through that evolution right now. It's I think we're kind of at the market leading edge of that. But it's absolutely something I see expanding, not just in cool chain, but across the rest of our business.
Absolutely. And the other thing, obviously, you've been building some really quite impressive and kind of cutting edge facilities across the UK in the last few years. And those are obviously big investment decisions to make, and they require quite a lot of confidence from your business, but also from your customers. Is that something that's sort of specific to XPO, do you think, or is that something about how the supply chain is now seeing the future and seeing those needs for sort of investments in our infrastructure?
Well, so we have a mixture of contracts. Some of them are short-term and transactional contracts, here and now. Supply and demands on our supply. So we have those kind of contracts, but the majority of our contracts are medium-term and probably getting a bit longer. So we're getting more deeper-rooted, longer-term relationships with our customers. I mean, the one you were probably referring to, our Nestlé site. I was there yesterday.
Yeah.
A huge investment, long-term contract, and the way you get there is to have really deep conversations with suppliers and our customer to ensure that we're the right partner. We choose the right partnership with the suppliers we work with, and the investment that we put in, I mean, significant investments that we put in, we need a return. We're a business. We're not a charity, we're a business. And in the end, the way in which we work together is we find a format commercially that works over a longer period of time. So I think investment always has to have a payback. That's driving a bit of a conversation around longer term relationships. There's no doubt about that. We've seen that in a number of our business operations. And where technology is, I mean, some of the operations we run, big automation projects, they absolutely demand longer term. I think actually some of the technology we deploy is not so requiring such longer term relationships, so can still stay within the medium term contracting. But typically speaking, customers are.
And I guess there's a bit of a virtual circle in this. As you sort of test stuff and you see the stuff that works, you can start to apply it out of sort of longer term investments into sort of more short term activities and improve the overall performance of the industry. So this is a point about sort of generic cold chain from my perspective. I think our biggest challenge in sort of the idea of a road to net zero is understanding the importance of those long-term investments on all sides, because you can't transform the way you use energy, you can't transform the way you drive efficiencies into operations without putting that kind of longer-term plan in place. Sort of clearly sort of thing that sort of it fits very well with the model that XPO has for its how it sees the future.
In the end, if your customer and the 3PL is thinking longer-term and strategic, especially when it comes to environmental projects or technology, if it's the right thing to do and it drives a better efficiency within both businesses, you just have an adult conversation around the length of the contract or the contracting you enjoy. And those conversations have been had more and more than ever. There's no doubt about that.
And I mean, we've obviously been through sort of 2 or 3 years of events being quite significant in the UK market, and whether that's Brexit and all the different sort of deadlines that we've had to deal with, and we've got another one coming up, and also obviously the COVID situation, which we've talked about a bit already. So does that help to generate that confidence and that partnership with customers, do you think?
Yeah, I think in customers, they've become probably a bit more reliant and see more value in 3PLs than perhaps even more historically. I mean, there's always been a value, but our ability to be able to help customers who maybe need additional storage, might need temporary or longer term, they need partners to help them with that. Some relationships or some customers can only sometimes operate from 1, maybe 2, maybe 3 sites. To be able to flex up in a COVID world or in a Brexit preparation, they need support and they need help, and that's absolutely what I'm hearing and feeling. And I thought I'd get away with an interview without Brexit, but it's the first one. It's the first time genuinely in recent weeks that this conversation of the last 3-4 weeks has come back again. Last year it was everything, and COVID's taken that off a little bit. But Brexit's coming, obviously again, and we're kind of involved in lots of kind of help and think tanks with government as well to see what's coming as the future, and we think we've got a network that supports. Obviously,
XPO, you're running the UK business, which is a very large operation in its own right, but obviously you're part of a much global network, as you said at the start. How does that work in your business? How do you sort of learn from international markets? How does learning, knowledge, and best practice and other things percolate through the XPO group?
A number of ways. I think as an organisation, the start point is we're a lean management structure. We're very close to our operations and our customers. So the first thing I would say is culturally, globally in UK, I feel it and lead it in effect, is that we're very close to what's going on with our customer base. That's the start point. We also have a European lead. The UK business reports through to a European structure. We have a European lead. It's actually a Brit, but works across Europe, who drives the initiatives for technology. So effectively that person is able to help us navigate and share what best practice is going on within our European business. That then requires us to be curious. So we then go finding out what value it added, how this could be magnified and grown. And that person then owns it from a kind of corporate perspective in terms of business case and the development of the initiatives and deployment. So that's what happens in Europe, but then our parent is a US business, and the same applies across US to Europe. Teams has probably made it a little bit easier. Teams and Skype, we share best practice a lot. We're on regular calls with our US colleagues. So, and we also have customers that don't just work in the UK; they work in US and in the rest of Europe. So our ability is to kind of share best practices in multiple different ways. There's no one way that works, but we're successful in being close to our customers and having good conversations with our broader business to understand what's the best route for success.
So probably at the core of what we're trying to unpack in this conference series and the work of the Cold Chain Federation is, how do we achieve those sort of big ambitions around environmental sustainability and stuff in a way that is robust, resilient and profitable for the supply chain in the short, medium and long term? Obviously you're a key decision maker in this business about how you decide these things. How important are environmental considerations in the mix of things when you're deciding what investments to make and how to sort of take the business forward?
Yeah, well actually they're really important, and they're really important for a number of reasons actually. They're important because quite commonly, in fact, I wouldn't say always, but quite commonly the environmental factor is almost the same as the efficiency and commercial factor. So, if you're running your fleet more efficiently, if you're reducing the number of people you require because of technology, people are driving into work less, or you're putting less fleet on the road, all those factors are environmental and also more commercially as well. So the two things work hand in glove. So naturally, it drives the right behaviour. I mean, DNA of our business is we've got a big corporate social responsibility factor here as well. You can't be a big organisation and not believe in your values. So there's the right thing to do. But also, I can't remember many occasions where we've been looking to grow our business and talk to new customers where they haven't mentioned about our environmental credentials and looking for evidence of where we've deployed kind of gas trucks or LED lighting, whatever it takes, and what our success rate has been, and they learn from our experiences. So it's actually a really big issue for our customers as well as us. So if we want to retain our status and growth status and ambitions, we have to be leading edge in kind of how we deploy environmental strategies. So I think it's more important than ever. I mean, frankly, I can't go home without talking about it. The new generation is growing up this way. So, in many ways, it's definitely not going away.
Thanks a lot, Gavin. I really appreciate the time you've given us today. Can I just give you a final thought, really, around the short term? What's on your sort of desk in terms of the key things you're thinking about for the next sort of 6 to 12 months for the business?
Growth we're a growth business. There's an energy in the business as a result of many years of being successful with new customers and being successful in landing them. We've got to watch an eye on what happens in the future around as a post kind of wash up of COVID. So what does that mean? There'll be some levels of change within the organisations that we serve. But I actually only see that as being a positive for our organisation because we're very strong in e-com, very strong in food and beverage, and those sectors are particularly buoyant at the moment. The last thing I probably would say is, in the end, we're successful about making successes of our customers. So being good at collaborating with retailers through to manufacturers and suppliers, in the end is going to make us a much better business and UK operation for supply chain. So if we can make a success of that last thing, we will do very well in growing our business, and that's the key thing for us.
Gavin, thank you so much for your time. That's been brilliant. So this is the week of the 9th of October. If you're watching this as we release it, we've got a workshop on adapting to change, which is very much the theme of this conversation we just had with Gavin, happening on Friday at 11. And Gavin has kindly agreed to be with us for part of that to answer any other questions that come up from the conversation we've had. I really appreciate that. So thanks a lot for participating in our event, and we look forward to even more great programs throughout this month. Thank you very much.